The council chamber was silent when Haiyan Wu walked in. He could feel thousands of eyes watching him from every direction. The room was huge, built like an ancient arena, with seats rising up in circles toward the ceiling. Each seat held a different alien species. Some had scales, others had feathers, and many had forms that Haiyan Wu could barely understand. They all had one thing in common. They all looked at him with anger. HYEON- Wu stood at the center of the chamber. A single podium waited for him, surrounded by empty space. The design was meant to make him feel small. It worked, but he did not show it on his face. He had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years now. He knew how to hide his feelings. Above him, Supreme Arbiter Kolvith began to speak. The creature was made of living crystal that changed colors as it moved. Its voice came through speakers in every language at once, including Korean. The translation technology was perfect, but it could not hide the cold tone in Kolvith's words. "Representative of humanity," Kolvith said, "you stand accused of crimes against the Galactic Council. 47 colonies built on forbidden worlds. Military ships built beyond your permitted numbers. Technology that you refuse to share with other species. Contact with primitive worlds that should have been left alone. How do you answer these charges?" Haiyan Wu took a breath. He had prepared for this moment, but the reality was harder than any simulation. Behind him, holographic displays showed images of human colonies. Ships with Earth flags. Soldiers in training. The evidence was clear and complete. The Council had been watching humanity for years. "The colonies provide homes for our people," Haiyan Wu said calmly. "The ships protect those homes. The technology belongs to us. And the primitive worlds were contacted by accident, not by plan. We have broken no laws." A wave of noise swept through the chamber. Aliens spoke in their own languages, creating a sound like angry water. Kolvith raised one crystalline arm, and silence returned immediately. "You claim innocence, but your actions speak differently," Kolvith continued. "Humanity has been part of this council for 47 years. You are young. You are new. You do not understand the careful balance that keeps peace in this galaxy. Your expansion threatens that peace. Your weapons threaten that peace. Your very existence has become a threat to peace." Haiyan Wu felt his jaw tighten. He wanted to argue, to defend his species, but he knew the truth. This was not a trial. It was a sentencing. The Council had already decided. "Therefore," Kolvith announced, "the Galactic Council issues this final warning to humanity. You have 90 standard days to remove all colonies from forbidden zones. You will reduce your military to permitted levels. You will surrender the specifications for your faster-than-light engines. You will accept Council observers on Earth and all human worlds. If you refuse, the Council will have no choice but to implement administrative correction." The words hung in the air like poison. Administrative correction. Haiyan Wu knew what it meant. He had studied the history. 3 species before humanity had refused Council demands. None of them existed anymore. Their worlds were empty now, marked as forbidden zones where ships could not travel. Haiyan Wu looked around the chamber slowly. He saw satisfaction on many alien faces. They thought humanity would beg. They thought he would cry or plead or offer compromises. Instead, he smiled slightly. "The United Earth Government acknowledges receipt of your suggestion," he said clearly. The chamber erupted. Aliens stood from their seats, shouting in languages that the translators struggled to keep up with. Suggestion, not order. Acknowledges, not obeys. Haiyan Wu had just insulted the entire Galactic Council in the most diplomatic way possible. He did not wait for permission to leave. He turned his back on Kolvith, another grave insult, and walked toward the exit. Guards moved to stop him, but Kolvith waved them back. The Arbiter watched Hyen Wu leave with eyes that glowed red with fury. 3 days later, Hyen Wu sat in a conference room on Earth. The room was deep underground, in a facility that most people did not know existed. With him were 3 other people who held humanity's future in their hands. Defense Coordinator G1 sat across from him, reviewing data on a tablet. She was older than Hyen Wu, with gray hair pulled back in a tight knot. Her face rarely showed emotion, but her eyes were always calculating, always planning. Prime Minister Tae-Sung stood by the window, even though the window was fake. This deep underground, there was no natural light. The window showed a recording of Seoul at sunset. Tae-Sung was a scientist before he became a politician. He understood numbers better than people, which sometimes made him a difficult leader. But he was also stubborn, which made him perfect for this moment. Fleet Admiral Young Mi completed their group. She was the youngest of them, barely 50 years old, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Her uniform was perfect, every button polished, every crease sharp. She believed in discipline and order, but also in protecting what mattered. They gave us 90 days, Hyen Wu said. But they will attack before then if they find what we are building. Let them find it, Young Mi replied. Every day they search is another day we gain to prepare. The colonists are afraid, G1 added. Messages are flooding in from every human world. They want to know if Earth will protect them or abandon them. Tae-Sung turned from the fake window. We protect them. We protect all of humanity. That is not a question. Then we proceed with cold fall. Hyen Wu said. The word hung in the air between them. Project Coldfall. For 20 years, a secret group of scientists had been working on something impossible. Something that could change everything or destroy everything. The 4 people in this room were the only government officials who knew the full truth. Dr. Baya Ra says the calculations are complete, Tae-Sung said quietly. The arrays are ready. We can activate at any time, and if it does not work, G1 asked, if we are wrong about what we found in those anomalies, then humanity dies in 90 days instead of living as slaves forever, Young Mi answered. I know which I prefer. Hyen Wu nodded slowly. He thought about the faces in the council chamber. The anger, the contempt, the certainty that humanity would submit because humanity was weak and new and small. They were about to learn something important about humans. When pushed to the edge, humans did not step back. They jumped, and they took everyone else with them. Send the order, Hyen Wu said. Begin Phase 1. Make them think we are complying. Show them scared humans dismantling colonies and recalling ships. While they watch our hands, we will work beneath their feet. And Phase 2? Tae-Sung asked. Hyen Wu smiled the same smile he had shown the council. Phase 2 is where we remind the galaxy that humanity did not climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being gentle. The bridge of the persistent shadow was dark and quiet. Captain Dong Hyen preferred it that way. Too much light meant too much energy. Too much energy meant the council sensors might detect them. For 3 weeks, his ship had been hiding in the shadow of a gas giant in council space, watching and waiting. Movement on the council fleet, Navigator Sujin reported softly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, even though no one could hear them in the vacuum of space. Old habits from military training. 6 destroyers changing position. They are moving toward human colonies in Sector 9. Mark their course, Dong Hyen ordered. Send encrypted bursts to command. Make it fast. Weapons Officer Jae Hyun touched his console, and a tight beam of information shot away into space. The message would bounce through 17 relay points before reaching Earth. By the time Council sensors detected anything, the message would be impossible to trace back to its source. The persistent Shadow was one of 50 stealth ships that humanity had built in secret. Each one was small, barely large enough for a crew of 12. They had no heavy weapons, no armor, just the most advanced cloaking technology that human science could create, and that was enough. For 30 days now, these ships had been watching every major council world. They recorded fleet movements, listened to communications, and mapped defense systems. The council had no idea they were being studied like insects under glass. How long until we rotate out? Su Jin asked. Another week, Dong Hyan replied. Then the silent runner takes our place, and we head back to Earth. I miss real food, Jae Hyan muttered. Recycled protein tastes like plastic. Everything tastes like plastic after 3 weeks, Su Jin agreed. I am starting to forget what kimchi tastes like. Dong Hyan smiled slightly. His crew was good. They complained, but they never stopped working. That was the human way. Complain about everything, but get the job done anyway. On New Bizen, the third largest human colony, Governor Hai-Jin stood in front of a crowd of 10,000 people. The colony's main square was packed with worried faces. People held signs asking questions. Will Earth abandon us? Are we going to die? Should we evacuate? I will not lie to you, Hai-Jin said, her voice carried by speakers to every corner of the square. The council has given us 90 days. They want us to leave our homes. They want us to destroy everything we have built here. They think we will simply give up because they are bigger and older and more powerful. Someone in the crowd shouted, Will Earth protect us? Hai-Jin looked directly at the woman who had spoken. Earth already is protecting us. Right now, at this moment, plans are in motion that the council cannot see. I cannot tell you everything, but I can tell you this. In 3 days, this colony will go dark. Power will shut down. Communications will stop. To outside observers, New Bizen will look empty and abandoned. Worried murmurs spread through the crowd. But we will not be gone, Hai-Jin continued. We will be going deeper. Underground facilities are ready. Food, water, power, everything we need is waiting below. We will hide, and while we hide, we will build. When the time comes to emerge, the galaxy will see what humanity can accomplish when pushed to the edge. What are we building? Another voice called out. Hai-Jin smiled. Hope. In orbit around the planet Kreshka Prime, homeworld of the militant Krishana species, Council Inquisitor Ralmoth reviewed his reports. So far, he had visited 8 human colonies. All of them appeared to be evacuating as ordered. Ships were leaving. Power signatures were dropping. Buildings stood empty, but something bothered him. The humans were cooperating too easily. In his 400 years as an Inquisitor, Ralmoth had overseen the correction of many species. They all fought back in some way. They all showed anger or fear or defiance. The humans just seemed to accept their fate. Sir, his security officer said, I am detecting unusual readings from the 5th colony world we inspected. What kind of readings? Ralmoth asked. Thermal blooms. Deep underground. They are faint, but they suggest active power systems below the surface. Ralmoth considered this. Could it be residual heat from shutdown procedures? Possibly, the security officer admitted. But the patterns are consistent with active installation operations, not shutdown. Noted in the report, Ralmoth decided. We will investigate further if needed. For now, the humans appear to be complying with council orders. That is what matters. But the security officer's concerns stayed in Ralmoth's mind. Humans were clever. Everyone knew that. What if this compliance was an act? What if they were hiding something? He decided to add an extra recommendation to his report. Increase surveillance. Send more inspectors. Do not trust that humanity will remain compliant. On Earth, In a laboratory 5 kilometers underground, Dr. Minho stared at equations that filled an entire wall. The numbers were beautiful and terrible at the same time. They represented something that should not be possible, something that violated every known law of physics, except it did not violate those laws. It bent them. It used them in ways that no one had thought to try before. The final calculations are complete, he told his team. 30 scientists stood around him, all looking exhausted. They had been working for 72 hours straight. The quantum entanglement arrays will work. We can reach across space itself and touch what lies beyond. And you are certain they will answer? Asked Dr. Dayun, the linguist who had spent 10 years learning to communicate with something that was not quite alive and not quite dead. No, Minho admitted. I am not certain. But the math says they will hear us. The math says they are always listening, waiting for someone to ask the right question. And if we ask wrong? Another scientist questioned Minho, looked at the equations again. Then we all die. But we are going to die anyway if we do nothing. At least this way, we die trying something that has never been attempted before. At Council headquarters, Supreme Arbiter Kolvith met with War Master Tolvarn. The Krayshina warrior was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in armored scales that gleamed like metal. His species had conquered 17 systems before joining the Council. They understood violence better than any other race. The humans are complying, Kolvith said. Preliminary reports show evacuation of colonies and recall of military vessels. I do not trust it, Tolvarn growled. I have studied human history. They do not surrender easily. This compliance feels like a trap. Perhaps they finally understand their place, Kolvith suggested. They are young. They can still learn. Or perhaps they are clever enough to make us think they have learned while they prepare something we cannot see, Tolvarn countered. I request permission to position my fleet in human space. For observation purposes. Kolvith's crystalline form shifted colors, a sign of consideration. You may position your forces at the border of human space, but you will not enter their territory without direct authorization. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Tolvarn replied. But his thoughts were already racing. Humans had a saying he had learned. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. He intended to get very close to humanity indeed. Back on the persistent shadow, Donghayan received new orders from command. The message was brief and encrypted, but its meaning was clear. Phase 2 was beginning. All stealth ships were to maintain position and prepare for final deployment. What is Phase 2? Sujin asked quietly. Donghayan looked at his crew. They had earned the right to know. In 45 days, we are going to reveal ourselves to the Council. We are going to show them that while they were watching human space, we were watching them. Every Council world has at least one of our ships nearby. When the time comes, we will drop our cloak and let them see us. They will panic, Jae-Hyan said with satisfaction. They will think we are preparing to attack their homeworlds. Exactly, Donghayan agreed. And while they panic and reorganize their defenses and argue about what to do, Earth will complete the real plan. We are not the attack. We are the distraction. What is the real plan? Sujin asked. Donghayan smiled. That is above my clearance level. But Admiral Young Mi told me one thing before we deployed. She said we're not going to fight the Council. We are going to make them irrelevant. The Council Armada arrived at Earth on day 60 of the countdown. 500 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, arranged in a sphere around humanity's homeworld. It was meant to be intimidating, and it was. Each ship was 3 times larger than Earth's biggest vessels. Together, they carried enough firepower to destroy the planet's surface 10 times over. Ambassador Haiyan Wu watched from Earth's main orbital station as the ships took position. Beside him, Inquisitor Ralmoth studied the planet below with his scanning equipment. The alien's expression was unreadable, but his body language suggested confusion. "Your defenses are offline," Ralmoth observed. "Your orbital weapons platforms show no power signatures. Even your commercial shipping has stopped." "As ordered," Haiyan Wu replied calmly. "Earth is complying with Council demands. We have nothing to hide." "Then you will not object to a full inspection," Ralmoth said. "It was not a question. I welcome it," Haiyan Wu answered. "I will personally guide you through our major facilities. You will see that humanity poses no threat to the Council. Over the next 10 days, Haiyan Wu took Ralmoth and his inspection team to every major city on Earth. They visited Seoul, where weapons factories had been converted to produce farming equipment. They toured Beijing, where military research centers now studied medical technology. They examined New York, where the shipyards stood quiet and empty dot at every location. Ralmoth found exactly what Haiyan Wu promised: peaceful compliance. No hidden weapons. No secret armies. Just a species that had accepted its place in the galactic order. But Ralmoth was not a fool. He had been an inquisitor for 4 centuries. He knew how to spot deception. And something about Earth's compliance bothered him deeply. "The people seemed calm," he commented as they walked through a market in Mumbai. Humans moved around them, buying food, talking, laughing. No one looked afraid. No one protested. "I expected more anger, more resistance." "My people understand reality," Haiyan Wu said. "We cannot win against the Council. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and alone. So we choose survival over pride." "A logical choice," Ralmoth agreed. But he did not believe it. Humans did not think logically. Their entire history was full of illogical choices. They fought unwinnable wars. They explored dangerous places. They took risks that no sensible species would take. This calm acceptance felt wrong. On New Jeju Colony, 5 kilometers below the surface, engineer Sang-woo watched his display screens with tired eyes. He had not slept properly in 3 days. None of his team had. They were too close to completion to rest now. The quantum entanglement. A ray stretched for kilometers through the underground tunnels. Massive towers of crystalline technology reached from floor to ceiling, connected by cables thicker than a human body. Each tower hummed with barely contained power, creating a sound that Sang-woo felt in his bones. "Final connections are complete," reported his assistant. "All 743 nodes are online and synchronized." "Power levels?" Sang-woo asked. "Holding steady at 97%. We can maintain this indefinitely." Sang-woo allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. The array was ready. When Earth gave the signal, New Jeju would be able to reach across space itself and touch something ancient. Something that had been sleeping for billions of years, waiting for someone clever enough to find the right frequency. He just hoped they survived what happened next dot above the surface. New Jeju Colony looked dead. Buildings stood empty. Streets were covered in dust. Solar panels were dark. To any observer, the colony had been properly abandoned. But 5 kilometers down, 30,000 people lived and worked in tunnels that Council sensors could not penetrate. They had food for 2 years. Water recycled from underground sources. Power from geothermal taps that left no signature above ground. They were invisible, and they were not alone. Every human colony had done the same thing. 47 worlds, each with secret installations buried deep, each with quantum arrays waiting for activation. Millions of humans hiding just beneath the Council's notice dot in orbit around Saturn. A different kind of drama was unfolding. Yoon-ji commanded a small civilian freighter called the Morning Star. She had been hauling supplies between colonies for 15 years. She knew every trick, every shortcut, every hiding place in human space. When the Council inspection team started boarding civilian ships for random searches, Yoon-ji refused. She locked her cargo bay, powered up her engines, and broadcast a simple message. This is a human ship in human space. You have no authority here. Council enforcers moved to intercept her. 3 military vessels, each 50 times her size, closed in from different angles. They expected her to surrender. She did not. Instead, Yoon-ji dove into Saturn's rings, using the ice and rock to break up sensor locks. She had done this run 100 times before. The Council pilots had not. They struggled to follow her through the debris field, their larger ships too slow and clumsy to match her maneuvers. For 6 hours, Yoon-ji led them on a chase through the rings. She broadcast the entire pursuit on open channels. Millions of people watched across human space. One small woman in one small ship, refusing to surrender to overwhelming force. She finally escaped by diving through a gap in the rings that her ship barely fit through. The Council vessels were too large to follow. By the time they repositioned, she had jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. The Council captured her eventually, 3 days later. But those 3 days were enough. Her active defiance had inspired thousands of others. Small rebellions broke out across human space. Nothing violent. Nothing that would give the Council an excuse to attack. Just refusal. Just quiet resistance. It reminded humanity of something they had almost forgotten. They were not the Council's subjects. They were humans. And humans did not kneel easily. At Council headquarters, War Master Tolvarn was losing patience. He paced in front of the Council assembly like a caged predator, his armored scales clicking with each step. The inspection is a waste of time, he declared. The humans are hiding something. My intelligence officers report unusual energy readings from multiple colony worlds. Deep underground installations. Communication bursts that make no sense. This compliance is false. Inquisitor Ralmoth found no evidence of deception, Supreme Arbiter Kolvith countered. His reports indicate full cooperation, because the humans are clever enough to show him what he expects to see, Tolvarn snapped. I am a warrior. I know what battle preparation looks like. The humans are preparing for war, not surrender. Then what do you propose? Asked Council Member Drexel, a scientist from a peaceful species. Should we attack a member species based on suspicion alone? Yes, Tolvarn said bluntly. Attack now, before they complete whatever they are building. Strike hard and fast. Show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council. The chamber erupted in debate. Some Council members agreed with Tolvarn. Others argued for patience. The arguing went on for hours, with no resolution. Finally, Kolvith made a decision. War Master Tolvarn, you will position your fleet at the edge of human space. Defensive formation only. If the humans make any hostile move, you have authorization to respond. But you will not attack first. Is that understood? Tolvarn bowed, but his eyes burned with frustration. As you command, Arbiter. But as he left the chamber, he was already making plans. If the Council would not give him permission to attack, perhaps he could arrange for the humans to give him an excuse. On Earth, Dr. B.O. Ra sat in her laboratory, monitoring Council communications. Her specialty was signals intelligence. She could intercept and decrypt messages that most species thought were secure. Right now, she was listening to Tolvarn's orders to his fleet. The warrior was positioning ships in a pattern that looked defensive, but could become offensive in seconds. He was preparing for war. Regardless of what the Council had authorized. She sent an urgent message to Defense Coordinator G1. One word in Korean. Accelerate. The reply came back instantly. Acknowledged. Moving to Phase 3 ahead of schedule. Ba'Ora closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Phase 3 was the point of no return. Once they revealed what humanity had been hiding, there would be no going back. The galaxy would change forever, one way or another. She thought about her daughter, who was in school right now, learning mathematics and dreaming of exploring distant stars. She thought about all the children across human space, innocent and unaware of what was coming. Then she thought about what the Council wanted. Submission, slavery in all but name. A future where humans remained forever under someone else's control. No. Better to risk everything than accept that. She activated her console and sent another message. This one went to every human colony, every stealth ship, every underground installation. 3 words that would echo through history. Light them up. Day 89 arrived with a message from Supreme Arbiter Kolvith. The message was broadcast across all human space, ensuring that every person could hear it. The Arbiter's crystalline voice was cold and final. Humanity has 1 day remaining to comply with Council demands. However, the Council requires 1 additional concession. You will surrender complete specifications for your modified faster-than-light engines. This technology exceeds Council standards by 40% and represents a security threat. Failure to provide these specifications will be considered an act of defiance. Prime Minister Tae Sung sat in his office on Earth, listening to the message for the 3rd time. Around him stood the same group that had met 90 days ago. Haiyan Wu, Guan, and Admiral Young Mi. They all looked tired. 3 months of preparation, deception, and fear had worn them down. They want our FTL drives, Tae Sung said quietly. The one advantage we have. The one thing that makes our ships faster than theirs. They fear what they cannot control, G1 replied. They always have. That is why the Council exists. Not to keep peace, but to keep power in the hands of the same old species. What do we tell them? Haiyan Wu asked. Tae-Sung stood up and straightened his jacket. We tell them no. 6 hours later, Tae Sung stood before the full Galactic Council. Every seat was filled. Every species was represented. The chamber was absolutely silent as he began to speak. Members of the Council, he said, his voice steady and clear. You have asked humanity to surrender the specifications for our faster-than-light technology. I am here to give you my answer. No. The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some stood from their seats in rage. Others banged appendages on their desks in what might have been approval or anger. Tae Sung waited for the noise to die down. The FTL technology you demand is human innovation, he continued when he could be heard again. It was not stolen from the Council. It was not copied from ancient ruins. It was created by human scientists using human mathematics and human engineering. It belongs to humanity. You are a junior species, Kolvith interrupted. By Council law, all advanced technology must be shared for the common good. Your Council law applies to technology derived from Council knowledge, Tae Sung countered. Show me the clause that requires sharing of independent innovation. I have read your charter. The document guarantees member species the right to conduct research without Council interference. Do not quote our own laws at us, War Master Tolvarn roared. You are in no position to make demands. I am making no demands, Tae Sung said calmly. I am simply exercising the rights guaranteed to humanity under the charter you wrote. If you force us to surrender our technology, you violate your own laws. And if you violate those laws for humanity, every other species will wonder when you will violate them next. Several younger species in the chamber made sounds of agreement. They remembered their own struggles with the Council, their own forced concessions. Tae Sung had touched a nerve that ran deeper than just humanity's problem. Kolvith's crystalline form turned dark red, a sign of deep anger. "This is your final decision?" "Yes," Taesung replied. "Then the Council has no choice. We vote now on authorizing military action against humanity." "All in favor?" Lights appeared throughout the chamber as species voted. The tally climbed quickly. 100 votes. 150. 200. When the counting finished, the result was clear. 187 species voted for military action. Only 27 voted against. Humanity would be made an example of. "War Master Tolvarn," Kolvith declared, "you are authorized to restore council authority by any means necessary. You may proceed." Tolvarn stood and bowed. The warrior's face showed satisfaction. Finally, he could do what he had wanted from the beginning. He could show these upstart humans what happened when you defied the council. "My fleet will begin operations within the hour," Tolvarn announced. "Human space will be secured within 1 standard week. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." As the council session ended, Haiyon Wu found himself surrounded by ambassadors from the 20 7 species who had voted against military action. They were younger species, most of them. Species who had joined the council in the last few centuries. "Your prime minister spoke well," one of them said. "You reminded the council of principles they have forgotten." "It will not save us," Haiyan Wu replied honestly. "But thank you for your support. Perhaps it will save all of us," another ambassador suggested. "The old species have ruled too long. Maybe humanity's defiance will inspire others to question the council's authority." Haiyan Wu nodded, but said nothing. He had other concerns now, like surviving the next few days. Across the galaxy, council fleets began moving toward human space. More than 2,000 warships, representing 30 different species, converged from every direction. The armada was massive, overwhelming, unstoppable. Or so the council believed. Admiral Young Mi watched the enemy fleet movements from her command center deep under the Pacific Ocean. Holographic displays showed every council ship in real time, tracked by the stealth vessels that had been watching for months. "They are not even trying to hide their approach," her tactical officer commented. "They think we cannot see them coming." "They think we are helpless," Young Mi corrected. "Let them believe that for a few more hours." She opened a secure channel to Captain Donghayan, still hiding near the Krishna homeworld. "Captain, are all units in position?" "Yes, Admiral," Donghayan replied. "All 50 stealth ships are positioned and ready. We are in orbit around 127 council worlds, exactly as planned." "Good," Young Mi said. "When I give the signal, you will drop your cloaking fields simultaneously. Let them see you all at once. I want every council species to wake up tomorrow and realize that human ships have been watching their homeworlds for 3 months. They will panic." Donghayan said with satisfaction. "That is the idea," Young Mi agreed. "Fear is a weapon too." She closed that channel and opened another one. This one connected directly to Prime Minister Taesu. "The council fleet will reach Earth in 72 hours, she reported. "We need to decide. Do we proceed with Coldfall, or do we try to fight them conventionally? Can we win a conventional fight?" Taesu asked, though he already knew the answer. "No," Young Mi said bluntly. "We are outnumbered 10-1. Our ships are faster, but theirs are bigger and carry more weapons. In a straight fight, humanity loses. Then we proceed with Coldfall," Taesung decided. "Dr. Biora, is everything ready?" Biora's voice came through another channel. "All quantum arrays are online and synchronized. The calculations are complete. We can reach out at any time." "And you are certain they will respond?" Taesung asked. "No," Biora admitted. "I am certain they will hear us. Whether they choose to respond is up to them." Tae-soon took a deep breath. Then let us ask the question. Activate the arrays. Across human space, on 47 colony worlds and 3 moons, massive quantum entanglement arrays came to full power. They had been built in secret, hidden underground where console sensors could not detect them. Each array was a marvel of engineering, capable of manipulating spacetime itself, but they were not weapons. They were communication devices, designed to reach across impossible distances and touch something that existed outside normal space. Something ancient. Something that had been sleeping since before the Council was born. The architect's Dr. Dae-yoon sat at her console, her hands trembling as she entered the final sequence. She had spent 10 years learning their language. 10 years studying quantum mathematics and spatial harmonics, and concepts that barely had names in human languages. Now she would find out if any of it mattered. The arrays activated with a sound like reality tearing. Space itself seemed to shudder. Across the galaxy, sensitive instruments detected a change in the cosmic background radiation. Temperature dropped by a fraction of a degree. Not much, but enough to be noticed by those who knew what to look for. And then, silence. Nothing happened. No response. No acknowledgement. Did it work? Tae-soon asked. I do not know, Dae-yoon replied honestly. We sent the message. Now we wait to see if anyone was listening. On the bridge of the persistent shadow, alarms suddenly blared. Captain Dong-hyun rushed to his console, his heart pounding. What is happening? He demanded. Space is changing, Soo-jin reported, her voice filled with wonder and fear. I am reading massive distortions in local spacetime. Something is moving. Something big. How big? Dong-hyun asked. Soo-jin's hands moved across her instruments, checking and rechecking the readings. When she answered, her voice was barely a whisper. Solar system big. And then they appeared. Not ships. Not creatures. Not anything that had a proper name in human or alien languages. The architects manifested as impossible geometries in normal space. Shapes that hurt to look at. Forms that existed in more dimensions than the human mind could process. They were beautiful and terrible. Ancient beyond measure. Powerful beyond comprehension. And they had come because humanity asked. Every sensor in the galaxy detected them. Every species, from the oldest to the youngest, suddenly knew that something fundamental had changed. The architects were awake, and they were not pleased with what they found. The temperature of space itself dropped. Not by much, just a few degrees in the cosmic background radiation, but every species with advanced sensors felt it. Something was wrong with reality. Something fundamental had changed. Then the architects appeared. They did not arrive like ships. They did not use faster-than-light travel. They simply were not there one moment and were there the next, as if they had always existed, but humans had only just learned to see them. Supreme Arbiter Kolvith felt them first. The architects did not communicate with words or signals. They communicated by placing information directly into every sapient mind simultaneously. It was not violent or painful. It simply was, like suddenly remembering something you had always known, but forgotten. The information came in mathematical concepts, in pure logic that transcended language. But human minds translated it into words, and alien minds did the same, and somehow everyone understood the same message. We witness. That was all. 2 words that changed everything. On Earth, in his office, Prime Minister Tae-soon felt the presence of something vast and ancient pressing against his consciousness. It did not hurt, but it made him feel incredibly small, like standing on a beach and watching an ocean that stretched to infinity. Did it work? He asked aloud, though he already knew the answer. They came, Dr. Biora confirmed, her voice shaking. The architects are here. They are everywhere. They are watching. At Council headquarters, panic erupted. The chamber that had been so confident just hours before, now filled with fear. Aliens shouted questions that no one could answer. How had humans done this? What were these beings? How could they make them leave? Only the oldest species understood. Kolvith's crystalline form had turned completely white, a color that meant absolute terror in his kind. "You fools," he whispered. "You ignorant, arrogant fools. You woke them up." War Master Tolvarn pushed through the panicking crowd. "What are they? How do we fight them?" "You cannot fight them," Kolvith replied. "No one can fight them. They built this galaxy. They shaped space itself. They existed for billions of years before any of us crawled from our primordial oceans. They are the architects. And they are the reason the Council was created in the first place." "I do not understand," Tolvarn said. "The Council's true purpose was never peace," Kolvith explained, his voice bitter with the weight of ancient secrets. "It was to prevent any species from becoming advanced enough to wake the architects. We hoarded technology. We suppressed innovation. We crushed species that reached too far, all to keep them sleeping. And now they are awake," another Elder Council member added, "because humanity asked them to witness what we planned to do." The full weight of humanity's strategy became clear. They had not built weapons. They had not prepared for war. They had invited the oldest, most powerful beings in existence to watch what the Council did next. It was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. On the bridge of the persistent shadow, Captain Dong Hyen watched as the architects manifested throughout the galaxy. One appeared near his ship, a geometric impossibility that his sensors could not properly measure. It existed in dimensions his instruments were not designed to detect. "Orders, Captain?" Su Jin asked nervously. "We wait," Dong Hyen replied. "This is beyond us now. We have done our part. The rest is up to people much smarter than me." At that moment, every sapient being in the galaxy received another message from the architects. This one was longer, more complex. It came with images and concepts that played directly in their minds. The message showed the truth of the Galactic Council. The architects revealed how the old species had built their empire on suppressing younger ones, how they had hoarded ancient technology while claiming it was for everyone's protection, how they had crushed innovation to maintain their own power. The Council had claimed to preserve peace, but what they really preserved was their position at the top of the galactic hierarchy. They had turned the galaxy into a pyramid, with themselves at the peak and everyone else. Trapped beneath Dot, the architects showed species after species that had been corrected for crimes that amounted to nothing more than threatening Council dominance. Worlds burned, civilizations erased, all in the name of order. And through it all, the architects had been sleeping, unaware of what the children of the galaxy had become. But they were not sleeping anymore. The next message was directed at the Council specifically. It came with a weight of judgment that made even the oldest species tremble. "You have grown beyond your purpose. You maintain order through fear, not wisdom. You preserve power, not peace. This ends now." Then the architects presented a choice to every species in the galaxy. It was not a demand or a command. It was an offer. Continue as they were, under Council rule, with all the restrictions and suppressions that entailed. Or dissolve the old Council and create something new. A true confederation of equals, where no species could dominate another. Where innovation was encouraged, not crushed. Where younger species had the same voice as older ones. The choice was given freely, without threat. But every species knew the architects were watching, and they would remember what was chosen. One by one, species began voting. It started with the youngest ones, the species that had suffered most under Council rule. They voted to dissolve the old system. Then middle-aged species joined them. Even some of the older species, tired of maintaining an empire built on lies, voted for change. When the counting finished, the result was overwhelming. 203 species voted for dissolution. Only 11 voted to maintain the council as it was. Democracy had spoken. The old order was dead. Supreme Arbiter Kolvith sat in his chamber, alone, watching his civilization crumble. His species had ruled for 3,000 years. They had believed their authority was permanent and unquestionable. They had been wrong. A message came through his console. It was from Ambassador Haiyan Wu. Arbiter Kolvith, humanity requests a meeting. We wish to discuss the formation of the new confederation. Your species has much experience in governance, even if it was not always used wisely. We would welcome your participation in building something better. Kolvith stared at the message for a long time. The humans were offering mercy. They were offering a place in the new order, not as masters, but as equals. It was more than his species deserved. He sent a simple reply. I accept. 3 months later, the first session of the Galactic Confederation convened. The location was neutral space, far from any homeworld. The chamber was designed differently than the old council. No podium of judgment. No elevated seats. Just a large circle where every species sat at the same level. Ambassador Haiyan Wu had been elected as the first coordinator, a position that would rotate among species every 2 years. He stood now at the center of the circle, looking at the representatives gathered around him. We begin something new today, he said. Not perfect, not without challenges, but honest. We will disagree. We will argue. Some decisions will be mistakes, but we will make those mistakes together, as equals. What about the architects? Asked a representative from one of the younger species. Will they remain? They have returned to their rest, Haiyan Wu replied. But they left us with a gift, a way to contact them if we need their witness again. They will not rule us. They will not save us. But they will watch if we ask them to. They will ensure that no species again builds an empire on the backs of others. And your quantum arrays? War Master Tolvarn asked. The warrior had accepted humanity's offer to lead the Confederation's peacekeeping forces. He had learned to respect humans, even if he did not always understand them. The arrays remain active, Haiyan Wu confirmed. But they are no longer humanity's secret. We are sharing the technology with all species. Not as a weapon, but as a reminder. Power means nothing if you are willing to share it. On New Bizin Colony, Governor Haijin stood on the surface for the first time in 3 months. The underground installations were being converted to research centers now. The colony was growing again, this time with scientists from 20 different species working together. She received a message from Earth. Her daughter, who had been evacuated during the crisis, was returning home. The galaxy was safe again, or at least safer than it had been. Captain Dong Han and his crew were finally back on Earth after 4 months in space. They were celebrated as heroes, though Dong Hyon felt uncomfortable with the attention. They had just done their jobs. Nothing more, but Jae Hyon enjoyed it. We made history, he said, eating real kimchi for the first time in months. We helped change the entire galaxy without firing a single shot. That was the point, Sujin reminded him. Violence is easy. Building something better is hard. Dr. Biora stood before the quantum array on Earth's moon, which had been converted into a monument. Thousands of students came each year to study it, to learn how humanity had reached out to something beyond comprehension and asked for help. She received messages from her colleagues across the galaxy. The architect language that Dayun had developed was being taught to young scientists from 50 species. They wanted to understand the mathematics that had made contact possible. Knowledge, it turned out, was more powerful than weapons. In a cafe in Seoul, Admiral Young Mi sat across from her old friend G1. They were both retired now. Their military careers ended with the crisis. They watched alien tourists walk past the window, some of them trying human food for the first time. "We gambled everything," G1 said quietly. "We bet that beings we barely understood would care about what happened to us." "And they did," Young Mi replied. "Not because we were special, but because we asked the right question. We did not ask them to save us. We asked them to witness what was being done to us. We appealed to their sense of justice, not their power." "Do you think it will last?" G1 asked. "This new confederation?" Young Mi shrugged. "Nothing lasts forever. Eventually, some species will try to dominate again. Some new council will form. But when that happens, someone will remember what we did. They will remember that there is always another option. You can fight back without violence. You can win without destroying. And most importantly, you can change everything by simply refusing to accept that things must stay the same." She raised her coffee cup. "We did not save humanity from the council. We saved the galaxy from itself." G1 clinked her cup against Young Mi's. "To stubbornness." "To humans," Young Mi corrected with a smile. Above Earth, the stars shone peacefully. The council fleets that had come to destroy humanity had dispersed to their home systems. War Master Tolvarn's armada had become the Confederation peacekeeping force, protecting instead of conquering. And in the deep spaces between stars, the architects slept again. But they were not as deeply asleep as before. They were listening now, waiting to see what the younger species would do with their second chance dot in a research station orbiting Jupiter. Young scientists from a dozen species worked together on a new project. They were studying the architect arrays, trying to understand technology that was billions of years old. Among them was a human student named Jin Wu, who had been born the day humanity issued its ultimatum to the council. He would grow up in a galaxy where his species was not feared or hated, but respected, where humans walked as equals among the stars, where the impossible was just something that had not been tried yet. The Galactic Council had issued its final warning. Humanity's icy response had followed, and the galaxy would never be the same dot in the end. Humanity had proven something that the old species had forgotten. The most powerful weapon was not the biggest gun or the fastest ship. It was the courage to stand up and say no to injustice, regardless of the cost. It was the willingness to risk everything for a chance at something better. It was the human spirit, stubborn and defiant and hopeful, that had changed the galaxy forever.